Blacks, of course, emerging from slavery had enormous disadvantages, even as compared to people emerging from slavery in other parts of the Western Hemisphere. Because, for one thing, in the United States, blacks were not allowed to have any responsibility under slavery. That one of the key ways of holding blacks in slavery at low cost was to keep the people dependent as much as possible. Now, people tried to do that in other parts of the Western Hemisphere. It wasn't as possible, say, in the West Indies, because there weren't enough whites, for example, in the West Indies to matter. So if blacks were going to be fed in the West Indies, they had to be fed by growing their own food.
Like Angola and like the Portuguese colonies compared to, say, South Africa.
Yes. And so, therefore, the blacks, say, in the West Indies had all sorts of experience growing their own food, selling the surplus in the market, and, in fact, being responsible for budgeting what they had. Blacks in the United States were deliberately kept from having that. Dependence was seen as the key to holding the slaves down. It's ironic that that same principle comes up in the welfare state 100 years.
Yo, how's it, guys? Welcome back to Freedom FANatics. My name is Alex. I will be your host for today. Remember, guys, your freedom is worth fighting for, and we're here to do that today with my good colleagues Sholin and Chris down in the Western Cape. Guys, remember, you can follow us at Badge of Liberty where you are. So be it TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, we are there. Just a quick announcement before we get into the show is that we have officially launched an online store where you can wear your freedom on your sleeve. So, guys, check it out, shop.freedomadvocacy.net, and we've got a bunch of hoodies up there for which you guys can have a look at. So with some powerful quotes on, wear your favorite freedom quote, and you can also gift someone the joy of liberty and freedom with a fan gift card. So feel free to check that out, shop.freedomadvocacy.net. Rightio. So to kick off with, we're going to start with a little news clip that came from JJ Tabane's show. It seems to be a bit of a trend we're on at the moment. But here he is interviewing Ntebo Dlamini, who is quite a controversial figure. I think it's warranted to say. And he was talking about state dependency. Now, let's have a look at the clip, and then we'll jump into discussing it.
Well, former student leader and fees must fall activist Ntebo Dlamini says the ANC has created a dependency state. He says this has been intentionally done to try and control people. Also speaking to JJ Tabane on Power to Truth, Dlamini says it's time for people to stand up and have pride in who they are.
Damage is in the head. Our focus must be the mind. We need to conscientize people. I said, South Africa, the ANC government, the black government, created a dependent citizenry. They found black people working and feeding themselves, and they made those people to be useless and to live on handouts. We are a laughing stock. We will fight these foreigners day in and day out. They are working. We want to go and queue for 350. The damage is huge. It was intentionally made so that you can control the citizenry, so that you can control the uprising and the violence that he's talking about. When you go to Mutu, when you go to Sigi and everywhere else, labo gogo about, hey, Mandela siyamthanda wasakhela izindlu. Hey, Mandela uyasondla usinike 300. Instead of saying we don't have jobs, why am I being fed? What type of a man will I be if another man builds me a house to live with my children? That's where we must rise as black people and seek pride in feeding our children, in building shelter for ourselves. Yeah. We can't be told by government that we build you a house.
For those. Okay, well, there you have it, guys. Very impassioned little speech there from Ntebo. Chris, you shared the video with us. What were your thoughts when you first saw it?
I started thinking about how we see that there's there's about 60% of young people that's reliant on the social relief of distress grant for whatever reason they have, because they don't have opportunities and the necessary tools to go work. And it sort of it struck, like, I really think that these people, they want the opportunities, so give them the opportunities. Don't give them money that they can use on they just it's decency. They need an opportunity. They want to work, let them work. Don't let them be dependent on the state for every single thing, because you're just gonna make it worse for yourself.
Chris, I'm just going to stick with you there because you recently wrote an article for us, which we'll be publishing this weekend, about the social relief distress grant. Sholin, you did a little news item on it. Guys, you can watch that on Fan News on TikTok. You can watch those 15-second clips where Sholin breaks down some important news stories for you, things that you need to know. But Chris, let's just touch on that article for a bit. They want to raise the social relief distress grants, if I'm not mistaken. Do you want to just give us a little summary of what, or maybe a little taste of what people can expect in your article?
So basically, the Department of Social Development wants to increase the qualification threshold from 350 Rand to the food poverty line, which is 624 Rand, so that more people can qualify to receive the grant. So automatically, there's about 11,000 applications for the social relief of distress grant. So they want more people to be able to access those grants. So yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. Cool. And what are your takeaways? What was your reaction to that? To that call.
I find that throughout my research, I was thinking to myself, this department and the government is sort of taking a bragging tone to this and saying, look how much people we have on social grants, and sort of parading around with the numbers. It's such a large number. It's sort of a good thing. I don't know, but it's really not a good thing, being dependent on the state, like for that.
In essence, like in Global Dlamini actually says. Now, obviously, Sholin, Global Dlamini is quite a controversial character. He's famously quoted as saying that we must do to white people what Hitler did to Jews in the heat of Fees Must Fall back in 2016. I can't quite recall. And he was quite a significant activist on the campuses of the University of Witwatersrand. But look, there's some weird, fishy stuff there about foreigners that he threw in, which I thought was unfortunate and disappointing. But otherwise, I think you can agree with most of them. And I think that's important, Let's start these ideas, people from across the political spectrum, ideologies, Fees Must Fall. People seem to all be on the same page at the moment. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, Alex, you're absolutely right. There is definitely some truth to what he was speaking, although some of those comments were rather unfortunate. But yeah, nonetheless, I do think he's correct, because we do have the situation where the ANC government have created a dependency state. There is no argument against that, especially when we have more people, grant dependents than job and income earners in this country. And I think there's a strong correlation, at least, between dependency and people becoming despondent, especially when they are not the ones actively earning that said income. And what that essentially causes in this context is that we have a situation where more people are becoming so dependent, more dependent on the government, that they do not want to necessarily upset the balance of things that occur, that the way things are right now, because they might get that 350 rand or whatever grant they receive taken away from them. And that is a fear tactic that we see many politicians use right now, especially those who advocate for more welfare, for more grants when we need more jobs, where they say that if you take us out of power, all of this money is going to be taken away from you, and you're going to be poor, and you're going to suffer, and always as if those South Africans do not experience suffering right now, as if though they don't experience food insecurity right now. So these people are really using this as a tactic, where they give and that they take as a means to, you know what, enforce their power. And yeah, the fact that that is occurring is truly, truly unfortunate. But I also think that as our clip at the start, Thomas so well highlights, is that, you know what, there's a real similarities, there's a real similar characteristics of what slavery did way back in the day and the way the welfare state operates today. Is that the only reason why I can survive, and the only reason why I can, continue on to the future and be a source as a money funnel. The only reason that can occur is that it requires individuals, communities, and citizens to be dependent on a master and on a leadership in whatever capacity that is, and that is a real cause of concern for us, especially as we go on into the future, because the question must be: we are on a trend where more people are going to be dependent on grants. Do you want future generations? Do you want to live on a grant until thy kingdom come? That's not a sufficient way to live. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that we're not rubbishing the idea of a grant in and of itself, and there is obviously a place for welfare where a state can afford it. As the reactions to your TikTok were shown from you guys at home, there was every second comment was like jobs. So I think we can. I think that's something to take with us to 2024. But let's watch the Thomas Sowell clip now that we've had a bit of a discussion about it. Let's just watch it again one more time, and then we'll get into our next topic after that.
Advantages, even as compared to people emerging from blacks, of course, emerging from slavery had enormous disadvantages, even as compared to people emerging from slavery in other parts of the Western Hemisphere. Because, for one thing, in the United States, blacks were not allowed to have any responsibility under slavery. That one of the key ways of holding blacks in slavery at low cost was to keep the people dependent as much as possible. Now, people tried to do that in other parts of the Western Hemisphere. It wasn't as possible, say, in the West Indies, because there weren't enough whites, for example, in the West Indies to matter. So if blacks were going to be fed in the West Indies, they had to be fed by growing their own food.
Like Angola and like the Portuguese colonies compared to, say, South Africa.
Yes. And so, therefore, the blacks, say, in the West Indies had all sorts of experience growing their own food, selling the surplus in the market, and, in fact, being responsible for budgeting what they had. Blacks in the United States were deliberately kept from having that. Dependence was seen as the key to holding the slaves down. It's ironic that same principle comes up in the welfare state 100 years later.
Well, yeah, there you have it. Good food for thought. Let's leave that topic there, guys. In addition to launching a shop this week, you'll notice there's a little floating pineapple in the top right of your screen, and that is indeed the new logo of the Freedom FANatics podcast. It was actually Sholin's idea to throw in the African flag into the mix, so we're very grateful that we have such a bright mind on board here at FAN. So we've put together a little article about the redesign of our podcast logo, and you guys can find that on freedomadvocacy.net if you want to read up a bit about it. But we're going to chat a bit about it now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share a little a video with you guys, which comes from Gravitas on YouTube, and essentially gives the background as to why we chose a pineapple, because I think a lot of people might think that's a pretty odd thing. But remember, you can find the article on freedomadvocacy.net. under the heading "Why Our Podcast logo is a pineapple." So let's have a watch of the clip from Gravitas.
Here's another story of determination. It is from Taiwan. The protagonists of the story are pineapples. Yes, the tropical fruit. Pineapples became the bone of contention between China and Taiwan. Here's what happened. China wanted to punish Taiwan, so it banned the import of pineapples from Taiwan. The move backfired. In just a few days, Taiwan has ended up selling more pineapples than China bought from it last year. How did that happen? With generous orders from friends and a hashtag. You don't want to miss the story. Pineapples. They were Taiwan's biggest export to China last year. 90% of Taiwan's pineapple exports went to China until Beijing banned them. Chinese customs officials claim they found pests in pineapples imported from Taiwan. But in Taipei, the ban was seen as a political move, designed to hurt Taiwan economically. Suddenly, Taiwan had to find a new market for its pineapples. It came up with a campaign, hashtag Freedom Pineapples. Government officials of Taiwan began tweeting about pineapples. They were promoting the indigenous produce with a sales pitch, an appeal to the world to purchase Taiwan's freedom pineapples as a form of protest against China. The plan worked. The Taiwanese have embraced the fruit as an act of patriotism. Taiwan's friends have backed the campaign. On Twitter, Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu asked the world to rally behind the freedom pineapple. The American Institute in Taiwan, the de facto US embassy in the country, promoted Taiwan's pineapple campaign on its Facebook page. The Canadians pitched in too. Staff at their trade office in Taipei posed with a pineapple pizza to support Taiwan. Japan too extended a helping hand. It ordered more than 6,000 tons of pineapples from Taiwan. A report from the Taiwanese press shared a photograph of an empty shelf from a Japanese supermarket, where pineapples from Taiwan went up for sale. In Taiwan, the consumption of pineapples has gone up.
So yeah, sorry guys, we're just muted there. But I think we get the idea. Sholin, you seemed quite intrigued there. What are your thoughts about the story in Taiwan and the rehashing, the adoption of the pineapple for fan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As always, so most of you won't know, but Alex is our designer on this side in Fan, and he obviously did a brilliant job with our logo. And yeah, with regards to the rest of the situation, I for one am very interested in geopolitics and foreign policy. That's definitely one of my interests. And this situation in Taiwan and China is actually one of the perfect examples that I think we can use if we want to explain the way things are actually operating in our world right now. Especially with regards to South Africa in that context, is because what we see is that Taiwan obviously wants freedom, it wants democracy, it wants self-determination, it wants to determine its own future as a country, as an independent country, away from the communists, away from the socialists on the other side of the political spectrum in China. And what it has done essentially is made use of these pineapples as a form to showcase their need for freedom, their aspiration for freedom. And that's why we should also look at it with regards to South Africa, is that South Africa is currently in the middle of this geopolitical conflict, although it's not like physical fighting taking place, between what we would call the Western countries who promote freedom, who promote democracy, free markets, and the rule of law, versus the other guys on the other side who are actually China, that want to, enforce their rules through communism, through state control, over citizens who actually want freedom. And so when South Africans really decide about, like, you know what, where should we stand while this conflict between freedom and coercion takes place, we really need to see where the line in the sand is drawn. And on the one side, what we have is countries like Russia and China who want to overtake and control other nations like Ukraine and Taiwan. While we have, and that's countries who are currently asking us, no, you guys need to come stand on our side. You guys need to come support us, which is a very dangerous route for South Africa to take, especially with our current government's views on certain things. And on the other hand, we have countries who are telling us that, you know what, you guys need actually more freedom. You guys need to deal with the corrupt. You guys need to protect property rights. And those are countries like the United States, like the United Kingdom, like Germany and France, who are actually pro-freedom, kind of like Japan, you know, like Singapore. These are pro-freedom countries. And South Africa's government is currently on a wrong path with pursuing closer relationships with dictators in the form of Vladimir Putin and, you know, Xi Jinping in China, because we can clearly see how coercive they are in their countries. So yeah, let's hope that we'll get on the right path and stick with our pro-democratic countries.
Yeah, 100%. So everyone go out and get yourself a Taiwanese Freedom pineapple. Maybe we can put it on the fan store. We can start selling Freedom pineapples. But we're running a bit over time. But Chris, in 30 seconds, do you have any thoughts on the matter here?
I think Sholin said exactly what I would say. But yeah, freedom is worth fighting for.
Yeah, 100%. And we say in the article, remember guys, there's that you can find the article online. It also provides a bit of historical context to the conflict between Taiwan and China. And yeah, maybe you can find a recipe for a fan pina colada. But on that note, guys, we have a rebranded edition of Burning Questions, which is now called Your Reactions, but it is still within Bali.
Ah, man, looks beautiful. Looks amazing. Hi, guys. Welcome to Your Reactions. Amazing. It's called Your Reactions, but you know, it's still the same content. Still with me, still with Sholin, Alex, and Chris. You know, nothing much has changed. So, guys, for today, we're looking at a code card from Mr. Nelson Mandela, Utata, who was an amazing person, even though I did not know him personally, but you know. And the code card reads, real leaders must be ready to sacrifice all for the freedom of their people. Alex, if you're the leader of South Africa, what would you sacrifice for your people?
Well, I think sacrifice comes in, well, obviously you're giving up your time, you're sacrificing a career, or so obviously you're gaining one, but I think it really is to be a civil servant. And a leader takes a lot of determination. I've heard some good things about Jordan Hill-Lewis down in Cape Town. Apparently he's someone who works really hard from dusk till dawn, or rather from dawn till dusk. I don't think he's working at night. But I think the point is, there's a lot of self-sacrifice that goes into being a civil servant. So, and that's what leadership is, you know, getting the economy working to a point where people have jobs. That's fighting for people's freedom. So, yeah.
You'd make a great leader. You did make a great leader. So, guys, let's go into the comments. And the first one is from Sharon, and she says, no leaders, just looters in the South African government. Sholin, your thoughts on those comments?
Yeah. Sheesh, that's a hectic one. I must say that, yeah, obviously for the real indication or the primary characteristic for any leader should be their willingness to sacrifice, because true leadership requires service, and not to them but to the people that they have been elected to lead. And yeah, absolutely, in our national government I would say that there are a lot of looters. We've seen this over and over again, with whether it's everything with corruption to tender entrepreneurs, to all of these wild contracts that just for some reason splash money at some of these leaders. That is the complete opposite of what we see as real leaders. But there are stories, I really have to like implore that we shouldn't be discouraged, but there are many stories of local government leaders, community leaders who actually serve their communities and are probably the only reason why South Africa is still able to function as we are right now. And that's why we definitely shouldn't be encouraged to that. We shouldn't stop, cultivating and creating leaders, or even be willing to step up as leaders who have integrity. Because clearly we can see with our national government, we need leaders more now than ever before.
Dude, definitely. Malusi Madiba, weird. He says, not freedom for all South Africans, only for the ANC leaders and their families. Even apartheid was better than this. So-called freedom, please stop insulting South Africans. Chris, was apartheid better than what we see in this day and age?
Definitely not. Because if he was living under apartheid, he wouldn't be able to say that.
Bro, he wouldn't even have Facebook. Definitely. Let's go to. I think there was a nice sweet and short one, because it's a thing of note. Like, don't even think like that. Julia here says, or Julie rather says, Mandela, in your grave, you orchestrated this. Sure, okay. Alex.
Sure. I know.
This was definitely your reactions, no?
Yes. No, I think there was things like cadre deployment did start under Mandela. So we history will look at him obviously very kindly, but let's also remember he was ANC. So take it where it comes. But no, I think I think he would be turning in his grave if he had seen what has become of what leadership there currently is in leading the country. So no, I don't think he's to be blamed here.
No, and Dumi says he left us with useless speeches. Sholen, did he? Are they useless?
Nah, I'm definitely one of those guys who'd be like, you know what, Madiba might have had some faults with regards to some of the people that were surrounding him in his party, for sure. But the sacrifice that Mandela made for us as a country, he's definitely no god, and I'm sure you wouldn't have wanted to be described as such. But the level of sacrifice that he did give for this country, we are yet to see anything like that ever replicated in South Africa's history. Where will we ever see a president, person, an individual so willing to sacrifice for the country like this guy? Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Mbali, what's that video? I see there's a comment with the video.
Do you want us to go to that? There's someone knocking on my door, which is, I'm not liking that. Don't knock on my door again, okay? Okay, let's play it. I think it's a video where Mandela is
in
talking.
order to avoid the budget, restructure the budget, in order to avoid the wastage of a budget, we will be able to use the country's resources in a more efficient manner, and to prevent the corruption which is so endemic in the National Party government.
Please, ladies and gentlemen.
The gravy trains where most of the funds of the country have gone have come to an end. We have committed ourselves to leaders trying to lead a style of life similar to those of the community. I am going to suggest that my own salary, if I'm elected as state president, must be cut. I am doing that unlike the National Party government, which has attempted to pay large sums to the Director General, when the poor people, when there are 5 million people unemployed, when there are 7 million people without housing, we are not going to live like fat cats. My friends in the National Party can do that. That's what.
Your friends, they can do that. Unfortunately, your friends have failed, Tata, as keys. But Alex?
No, interesting. I think what's quite an interesting takeaway from that is it talks about, so this is obviously pre-96, or pre-94 rather. Unemployment of 5 million people unemployed, and we're now sitting with double. So there's still a lot of problems, but it's an interesting thing, corruption's corruption, eh? I think, and again, if that was his intention, and if now is what the current state of the ANC is his legacy, I think he'd be pretty disappointed, as you said. But
because there is a comment here, I'll come to you just now, Sholin, from Marilyn, and she asked, how do you think your ANC is doing? I think the right answer is you'd be very disappointed. They're doing a terrible job. Sholin?
Yeah, I just have to echo what Alex just mentioned there, is that corruption is corruption. It doesn't matter the individual's the color of the skin, or even the political alliance who they associate with. We should be calling out corruption regardless. And one of the things that we usually see a lot happening is that when people like the ANC are caught in corruption right now, they'll be like, oh, but remember the guys in apartheid, those who did it? And somehow that justifies them doing it right now. So if you steal, you steal, and you should be held accountable for that, regardless, my guy. And one of the things that we obviously are still struggling with is the accountability of those people that actually commit these corruption acts. Because one of the benefits that we have now in a democratic society is freedom of not only speech, but the freedom of our press. And a lot of these stuff are unraveled to us, and we know all about it, but yet we do not see the follow-up, which is these guys in orange overalls. That's what we need to see right now.
Yeah, definitely. We need to see more of them in this orange overalls. Definitely agree, Sholin. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of #YourReactions. Remember to definitely check out our online store. Get yourself a cool hoodie, cool t-shirt, and overall cool merch from Freedom FANatics. And guys, thank you for joining me.